Update. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my biological parents' face when they told me leaving us was the hardest decision they have made? Original post. Our family has an interesting story. My bio mother's side and bio father's side have two marriages between the families. One of them is our bio parents, and the other is between my bio mom's brother, 55, and my bio dad's sister, 54. My bio mom, Linda, and my bio dad, Chris, actually met at my uncle and aunt's engagement dinner when both of them were 16. Linda and Chris are still complete wrecks. My bio dad was the troubled one in the family who would have problems with school or work, and my bio mom has had addiction issues since she was 14. When they met and started a relationship, both sides of the family tried to break them up. They even sent them to different countries, but they stole the equivalent of 50,000 USD from their families, managed to reunite, and ran away when they were 19. They got married in a third world country and had me, 25 male, and my twin brother when they were 21 years old. They thought we were deadweights, so they left us in the hospital and went to another country. Luckily, they had checked into the hospital with their passports, so the hospital contacted the embassy, which then found our grandparents. Our grandparents brought us back home, and we have been raised by our uncle and aunt ever since. We call them mom and dad. Our parents were charged with child abandonment, but after 10 years of being MIA, the charges were dropped, and our families didn't try to look for them. 2 years ago, they showed up at my dad's parents' house completely changed. It turns out they had finished their education, gotten stable jobs in that country, started mental health treatment, and had been sober for 9 years. They had basically put themselves together. For the first 6 months, they only saw their parents in public places. Then they were eventually accepted back into the family homes. A year later, they met with us when we were 24. My twin brother and I started to have a relationship with them, and we are somewhat cordial right now. Last week, the topic of our abandonment came up, and Linda said it was the hardest choice they had ever made. I started to laugh uncontrollably at that. When they asked why, I told them they had multiple opportunities to come back and didn't. I said our families were right not to trust them, that everyone would always keep an eye on them, and they should accept this at this point. Linda started to cry, and they left shortly after. All of the family except my brother think I am being too cruel and that I should apologize, but I think they needed to hear the unfiltered truth. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. They abandoned you in a foreign hospital. If they'd left you with your family and then tried making something of themselves, it would be forgivable. I don't think what they did is. It is a miracle that they checked in with their passports, and even though it was a third world country, Sri Lanka, the doctors and nurses had compassion and tried to find our families, and the country actually had a good healthcare system, so it wasn't hard to find our family. Look, it would be different, not totally free of problems and faults, if they had left you at your grandparents or at your now mom and dad, aunt and uncle, but they left you at the hospital. There was a high chance their intention was to never look at you again. She may regret it for real in hindsight, that's understandable. But you know, the dildo of consequences. Not the a-hole, but it depends on what kind of relationship you want with them going forward. This will limit a relationship, but you may not care anyway. The rest of the family wants a restored relationship. I wouldn't even trust a penny to either of them, so if they are not okay with it, they can leave. I honestly don't know what my family wants from them. The idea of a perfect family. My family has spent decades trying to get people who never got along to get along. Oh, I see. I mean, I understand the reason why my grandparents keep an eye on them, because they are their children, and they've failed to keep them safe and raise them appropriately. But I don't understand why the extended family members and adopted parents care about their feelings. Honestly, I would have said good riddance. Now for the update. So, I made a post here about a month ago regarding my birth parents. I would like to thank each and every one of you who gave thought and time to comment on that post. Some things have happened since then. First, my bio mom and bio dad are not allowed to contact me unless they want to go to jail. A good friend of mine from high school is a lawyer, and he advised me to prepare a cease and desist letter. My main language is not English, but this is the closest term Google Translate gave me in legal terms. He did it for me free of charge because he said, that's what good friends do. My brother is sad that I am not even entertaining the idea of a relationship, but he says it's okay and that he understands. He just sees them from a different perspective, the same perspective he has when looking after patients he cares for. My mother and father weren't happy about the cease and desist and accused me of being cruel and heartless. They said I was the embodiment of a demon and told me they would cut contact with me if I ever put this plan into action. I said, well, consider this our last talk then, and left their house. I live in my own apartment that my grandparents gave me as a birthday present on my 18th birthday. So no worries, it's in my name and no one can touch it. We haven't spoken a word since, and I doubt this will change in the foreseeable future. My parents are too forgiving, and ever since childhood, I have been told I am too vindictive, and that still continues. My parents say I remind them of my great-grandfather, who ruined people's lives just because they did small things wrong to him. I'm not going to argue with that. My grandparents, though, have understood my perspective, and they said they will respect my boundaries. They also asked me to respect their boundaries in maintaining a relationship with my birth parents. I said, of course, and we reached an agreement. I still love them very much and feel lucky to have compassionate parental figures who can understand where I am coming from. Other extended family members are divided. Most of them think I am cruel and no longer want to have a relationship with me, other than being civil when we see each other, while some still want to preserve the relationship we have. I can live with this. I am also back in therapy. Thanks to my brother, he arranged a session with a therapist and an appointment with a psychiatrist at his hospital. So I am currently back in therapy and have started using antidepressants. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it helps. As for me, my life continues as if my birth parents never showed up. I go to work, spend some me time on the weekends, hang out with my friends whenever I can find the time, and visit my grandparents once every 2 weeks. They live next door to each other. My brother is my next-door neighbor, so we eat most dinners together when he is not on night shifts. On those nights, I usually find someone to spend some time with. So, missing info. What happened that caused a cease and desist or restraining order to be issued? It was a preventative thing. My lawyer friend said they would continue to pester me or even ambush me at my house, so I took this initiative as a primary prevention. Due to the nature of the previous case, by our country's law, I can ask for a cease and desist letter, but that is not a restraining order. It is just a warning letter against them saying if you ever come close to me, I will accept that as an assault, and I will act according to that. Not the a-hole. The majority of your family sounds toxic. I'm glad you're in therapy and getting the help you need. And I'm glad you have gone no contact with everyone harassing you and calling you names. You are not a demon by any stretch of the imagination. You are not to blame for other people's bad behavior. And when you react to protect yourself from that behavior, you are not wrong. I'm sorry your parents and bio parents are both ignorant and hateful. Reading the first post, I wondered what the family was like if the bio mom got into drugs at 14 and the bio dad had problems as a teenager too. Figured there was probably some toxicity in the first place. And after reading the rest of the family's reaction to OP not wanting anything to do with the adults who literally abandoned them in another country without even trying to contact back home, I feel firm in my stance that OP's family sucks. My family comes from somewhat of a noble lineage in our country, and everything is about appearances and how we are perceived from the outside. Abandoning outcasts is something they are familiar with. So yes, they are toxic, and the concept of a remittance man is a thing in our family. My bio dad and bio mom are not innocent here. Their parents, my grandparents, pushed every button they could to make things right, medically and emotionally. But my bio dad is a diagnosed borderline, and my mother is type 1 bipolar, diagnosed very early at age 13. I am also diagnosed with medication-resistant depression. I had TMS when I was 18. So mental health disorders are genetically rampant in our family. My brother is also type 1 bipolar. Our grandparents tried to change a lot of things in our families, but their siblings wanted things to stay the same, so it didn't work. However, they raised me and my brother according to their ethical code, so they are the ones we look up to. Our parents, unfortunately, were heavily influenced by their aunts and uncles. Next story. Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to invite my parents to my wedding after 14 years of no contact? Original post. I have been no contact with my parents for 14 years. The story behind it is long and boring, but I will simplify it. My parents divorced when I was 14 after my dad caught my mom cheating, and the divorce was extremely messy and hostile. The only thing they had in common was that they didn't want anything to do with me. I never understood why, and they never told me, so I went to stay with my grandparents. I tried for a year, but my parents completely ignored me, so I cut contact with them. Skip forward to a few days ago, and somehow they showed up again for my wedding. I'm getting married in 4 days, and I'm already stressed about the big day because everything must be perfect, and they decided to barge in out of the blue. For my wedding, I obviously invited my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, my cousin and her 2 little daughters, and my friends. So everyone, but not them, and they decided to step in a week before the wedding, not asking, but pretending they could be there just for some photos. This is the most ridiculous part. They don't even want to be there for the whole ceremony or the entire day, just for the photos, and then they would leave. I obviously ignored their texts and calls because there is no reason I would even think about having them at my special day. But here's the thing. My family knows my parents were completely absent until now. Yet, according to them, this is their way of trying to make amends and ask for forgiveness. I obviously don't believe this nonsense because to me it's very simple. They just want to show up for the image of the perfect family and then disappear. But of course, I am not in the mood for any drama or nonsense right now. My fiancé, my friends, and most of all my grandparents are on my side. They keep reminding me that my parents never showed up for me in 14 years, and that they are only doing this now for appearances. But there's still that little part of me, the part that spent years crying because I miss them, that has no answers about why they completely ignored me after the divorce. So, as crazy as it might sound, they actually succeeded in planting a bit of doubt in my mind. Rationally, I know I shouldn't cave, but that small part of the abandoned kid in me wants closure and answers. So, am I the a-hole? Should I give them a chance? Or should I ignore them like I have for the past 14 years? Now for the comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Hire security. Definitely hire security. And send them a message in writing that they are not welcome at your wedding or any events you will be present at, and that you will have security remove them if they show up. Tell them that if they ever hope to speak to you again, they will stay away from you and your wedding. If they cause you any grief at all, they will be cut off forever. Call or text every family member attending your wedding. Remind them of how your parents threw you away all those years ago, and tell them that this is absolutely not the time to try to reach out to you. You are not interested. If they don't agree or have a problem with your boundaries, they don't need to attend your wedding. If your parents don't stay away and respect your wishes, it just proves you are right for staying no contact. Don't give in to any pressure, and don't invite your parents or let them anywhere near you. If they cause you any grief at all, they will be cut off forever. They could read from that line that there would be a chance at reconciliation if they managed to not cause any grief. I'd recommend that OP paraphrase the last words I ever said to my own father instead. My parents died 14 years ago. I don't know who the hell you two are. Now for the update. I will start by saying that my parents will not be coming to my wedding. I came to this decision after talking a lot with my grandparents, and they finally convinced me to open my eyes and not let that little kid who wants his parents back take control. I had a pretty bad argument with my parents, and honestly, I thought I would feel bad or have some remorse, but I don't. They even tried the pathetic move of getting my fiancé to talk sense into me, but she already knew everything, so she simply told them to go to hell. I paid a bit more for extra security since I'm getting married in 2 days, and I don't want any scenes, drama, or problems. Right now, I just hope my parents don't try anything crazy on my wedding day, but I guess I'll wait and see. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking mother-in-law for house key back? My partner's parents have a key to our house for emergency situations only. I've recently had a baby, 3 weeks postpartum, and my mother-in-law just keeps coming over and letting herself in, usually when I'm relaxing in bed with my baby. I finally snapped yesterday. My partner is back at work now, and I went for a sleep. The baby was asleep next to me in the crib. Mother-in-law let herself in once again, snuck upstairs, took my baby out of the crib, and took him downstairs while I slept. I ended up waking up in a total panic a couple of hours later because he'd usually cry for a feed which wakes me. I breastfeed. I leaned over and saw he wasn't there and completely freaked out. I rushed downstairs where I saw the living room door closed and heard him crying. I threw open the door and my mother-in-law was just sitting there with him. She casually smiled and said, "Someone's grumpy today." And I was like, "He's not grumpy. He should have had his feed over an hour ago." I took him from her and headed back upstairs. She tried to follow, and I just snapped and asked her to leave. She looked at me all confused and irritated, and before she could say anything, I just said, "Please, put our house key on the side table and leave." She did, and later that day, she must have called my partner while he was at work, because when he got home, he brought it up. He wasn't mad though, and he did understand, which was a relief, but he said his mom is really upset. I just responded with, "She can't just show up here and let herself in. It's pissing me off." He said, "I know, I get it. I do. Just know she doesn't mean any harm. But I agree with you." I told him the fact she doesn't mean any harm is not the point. It's intrusive, and I don't care that she's upset right now. Am I the a-hole? You're definitely not the a-hole. I'd change the locks because you'll never know if she made copies of your keys or not. Make sure your husband starts setting clear boundaries with his mom. This is the solution. Change the locks and turn off your doorbell during nap time. Put latches on the doors. Then it doesn't matter if she has a copy and it will help when baby starts toddling. Intent doesn't trump the actual outcome. She overstepped, exercised zero self-control, or worse, felt entitled to behave that way. She should be upset. She should be upset that she upset a freshly postpartum mother and made her panic when she couldn't find her baby. That's a terrible thing to do to a new mother. I wouldn't ever apologize for what I said to her either. You weren't rude and she was an uninvited intruder at that point, not the a-hole, and don't let anyone make you doubt it. This is it exactly, 100%. My monster-in-law did the same thing and laughed that she made me panic thinking my baby was kidnapped. That was only the start of her shenanigans. She trampled boundaries everywhere. We had to go no contact with her for 4 years. No contact ended because my father-in-law was diagnosed with and subsequently died from cancer. He and I got on great, another thing she disliked. She has started pushing boundaries again, but I have a shiny spine and my husband doesn't take crap from her anymore.